Hi, my name's Christy. I'm a boundaries and resiliency coach at In Health and Healing. Join me for a series on emotional boundaries. And in this episode, we're going to dig into friendship. So join me for the next episode on this series of emotional boundaries. Friendship. How the Bible describes friendship. Proverbs 27:17. A true friend influences, enlivens, and sharpens. Proverbs 16:28. A true friend avoids gossip. Proverbs 18:24. A true friend is loyal. Proverbs 27:9. A true friend gives heartfelt advice, bringing joy to the heart. Deuteronomy 13:6 through 11. Even well-intentioned friends can provide false comfort and give it bad advice, as Job's friend did, making his suffering worse and displeasing the Lord. The Bible warns us in Corinthians 15:33, do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. Let me say that again. Bad company corrupts good character. Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Pick your flowers. So we're going to discuss a little bit about a friendship bouquet. So in friendship, it's important to consider what we value most in a friend. Like a bouquet of flowers, what colors do we like? What's the intention of this bouquet? What are we allergic to? So much like this bouquet, we want to think about our values, kind of our pillars of things that align with what we value most in life. For example, if I'm trying to save money, maybe I don't want to hang around someone who is where their value is fun, adventure, and food, where they're going out on these fun adventures and where that costs money to do. That those values aren't going to align. Uh, so think about like what your preferences are. So, using the bouquet reference, some people prefer roses, some people prefer daisies. Um, it's important to think of the purpose of this friendship. Is the purpose of this friendship connection? Is it, uh, is this my board game buddy? Maybe this is an adventure buddy. Maybe there's a supper club and you connect over the joy of food and food adventure. So, what's the purpose of this friendship? And sometimes values don't align. As I mentioned, sometimes it's not that it doesn't mean that they're bad people. It doesn't mean that they're enemies. Sometimes values just don't align. As I mentioned earlier, about if I'm trying to save money and I befriend an adventurous person who wants to travel and who wants to go out to eat and experience new restaurants, those value systems probably aren't going to align if one person's trying to save money and the other person is looking to have experience through using money. Those values aren't going to align. So it's important to think about, uh, points of connection and what is compatible and maybe what isn't. And, maybe there's areas, maybe those two people, if I'm trying to save money and they're looking through to have adventure through spending money, maybe there's other areas that we can connect on. So lean into the areas, maybe we're both into books and we start a book club. So you think about the points of connection and where you are compatible and lean into those areas. So compatibility is definitely important to think about. Think about the values you want in a friend. A friend doesn't have to fit all of these, right? Like we're probably not going to find someone who's going to check every single box. Uh, for example, my husband has that gene where cilantro tastes like soap to him. I love cilantro. I could put cilantro on anything and everything. You know, I can still enjoy food and enjoy cilantro in the places where I enjoy them, and he can also, have the experience minus the cilantro. Not everything needs to perfectly connect. We don't have to agree on everything. Maybe their political values are slightly different than mine. Doesn't make it better or worse. It just means that we value things differently. So we lean into where we are compatible and respect the space where maybe values just don't align. Uh, that being said, think about when we're in early stages of friendship, it's important to look. Our vulnerability is to be honored, it's to be respected, and ideally to be shared in safe spaces with safe people. My vulnerability I share with people who will honor that vulnerability. Uh, so before I go into any type of emotional vulnerability, I am looking for yellow flags and red flags. Now, yellow flags, well, I guess we could look at it in terms of green flags, yellow flags, and red flags. So, yellow flags are, so we've gone through and we've seen where we're compatible. I'm going to lean into those spaces of where I'm compatible with this potential new friend. And along this journey as we connect, think of yellow flags, behaviors that alert to traits that don't align with my values. For example, if my value is I don't gossip because it leads to mistrust, it's not of good moral character, it doesn't align with my ethics or values. Um, so I prefer to be in spaces where gossip isn't a temptation and gossip doesn't happen. Uh, and if I'm in spaces where I see the potential for that, that could be a yellow flag. Everyone can slip up every once in a while. We people are not perfect. Uh, but through time, we can see patterns, and that's what we pay attention to. So next, think of hard no's. These signal incompatibility. Some hard no's could look or sound like a contradiction to your values and priorities in a friendship. So over time, it'll pull you away from your pillars. So going back to that gossip, that's my own personal pillar. Uh, if I'm befriending someone who has a tendency, as lovely as they might be, they have a tendency to entertain gossip, that's going to pull me away from my value of not engaging in gossip. And we want to surround ourselves with people who strengthen our pillars and reinforce those values systems and not pull us away farther from our ethics and our values and what is most important to us. Uh, Peaceful mind, peaceful life quotes. You don't need to stop offering grace and compassion, just adjust who you spend your energy and time with. So it doesn't mean we're making enemies. It doesn't mean that they're bad people. We're not placing judgment on them. We're just simply assessing who's compatible and who isn't, and where there might be some misalignment that might pull us away from our values. And your subconscious will signal to you who's right for you. Um, have you ever left a lunch or a get together where you, as you're on your way home, you feel bubbles of anger or resentment pop up, or maybe shame or guilt? Your nervous system will signal to you who is good for you, and where your nervous system will signal perhaps people who don't align with your values system. Uh, and then have you ever left a lunch, like in contradiction to that, have you ever left a lunch or a connection with a group of friends, or maybe just a single friend, where you feel invigorated, you feel positive, you feel connected, you don't feel frustrated, you don't feel angry? um, so think about how you feel after you spend time with that person. Do I feel frustrated and tension built up? Am I angry? Am I resentful? Do I feel ashamed about myself? Like, is this person, are things being said to make me feel less than? Or do I feel amped up? Do I feel, I want to be around people who are cheering for me as I'm cheering for them, and who can hold space, when I fall flat on my face too, as I hold space for them. Um, so this brings me to my next section. Uh, as women, in my experience with women, I find it challenging to get together with women over a certain age, where I call it pee-peeing. I don't want to be pee-peed on. Or maybe it's peed on. Where the only form of conversation boils down to the three P's: politics, problems, or people. Meaning, they're sharing what is going wrong in their life. They're sharing what their political values are, or political pop culture events, and or talking about people, meaning gossiping. And that's not fun. Like, so I'm a part of a board game group, and as as we connect, like, if the intention of this group is to connect over fun and games, right? That's the point of connection, the motivation behind this connection. Uh, and we're being pulled away from the pillar, like the point of that connection, um, towards problems or political values, uh, or talking about other people. Um, that's not fun. That doesn't align with, like, kind of board game vibes. Uh, so think about, like, the point of, like, how can I add to the experience? There can be a time and a place. Listen, we all have problems. Life gets lifey, and your friends, your people, your village are certainly there to lift you up and to remind you of who you are and your strength when you feel the weakest. That is absolutely the point of community. But there comes a point where your knapsack is yours to carry, and I honor the weight of that knapsack as I honor the weight of my knapsack. And if the point of this connection is to play and have fun and connect I just think that there's a time and a place. And typically, I've never been a part of a political conversation, maybe once or twice, where most people want to make statements of declarations and they're not really hearing the other person. And it doesn't matter what party it is, it doesn't matter the belief, it doesn't matter. It hasn't, in my experience, it hasn't brought people together. There's a time and a place for that. Uh, when we're looking to hear each other, I enjoy political conversations where I'm looking to learn about something that I haven't been exposed to before, new ideology, new insight, new way of looking at things. Uh, and it's an exchange. But often, political conversations, we're just kind of parroting each other's feedback and we're not really hearing each other. And there's a this versus them aspect to it. And I don't know, it just doesn't, in my experience, it just doesn't ever uh, end bringing people close together. Uh, we all contribute and share the responsibility of that shared space. So, topics that I bring up, like this space, when I get together with friends, this space is as safe as I make it, as it is the responsibility on the people that are there present as well. And we all share a responsibility of the integrity of that shared space. Um, And it's important to think about what would add to that environment instead of like drawing, like taking away from that environment. Imagine the hurt that would ensue, like if the vulnerability isn't being honored, if it's not a safe space, imagine the hurt that would happen when someone's being vulnerable and we're having a point of deep connection and I'm not honoring the safety of that and integrity of that space. And someone shares something with me, and I go and repeat that. That's not going to build trust. That's going to tear away trust. Um, Integrity of the space that's shared is fundamental. Like, where the topics that we talk about, what we ask of each other. We talked about emotional boundaries in the last episode. Uh, and, we have a responsibility to ourselves and to the people that we share connection with. The people that do align with our values and that we want to lean into connection and that are compatible with us. We have a responsibility to the integrity of that space so it's safe for everyone that is engaging in that connection. Uh, I've noticed building friendships as an adult that a lot of people have boundaries and the concept of boundaries established on financial boundaries. For example, when I go out to dinner with a friend, uh, they'll pay for their meal and take care of, whatever financial needs are that come up. But if I go to, dinner, they'll pay for their meal, I'll pay for mine. So we have an awareness. We have an awareness of financial boundaries. We have an awareness of physical boundaries. I'm not going to touch that person inappropriately. They're not going to, touch me inappropriately. But I've noticed that emotional boundaries, there's often not a very clear, defined idea of what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. I've been in spaces where that conversation and that level of kind of emotional labor being tasked of me would be more appropriate in therapy and not in uh, we could call it like above my skill set. uh, where, it would be more appropriate to have that conversation or to do that kind of emotional work, internal work in a therapeutic space than over lunch with, meeting up with a friend. Uh, in Galatians 6:5, for each one should carry their own load. And the Greek word for load meant traveler's backpack or knapsack. It means you're responsible for your own personal duties and choices. So, in my experience, all too often, especially in freshly new friendships, I see folks attempting to offload their burdens. Emotional vulnerability is intimacy, it's a form of intimacy. And I'm only intimate with committed relationships where I feel safe enough to have that level of intimacy given and received. Too often, I feel pressure placed on me too soon to be what I would call an emotional hussy, meaning I engage in emotional intimacy in committed where trust has been established. And I would phrase an emotional hussy would be giving a level of emotional intimacy out where that trust hasn't been established yet. That level of intimacy, that level of trust hasn't been established through time yet. And that can only happen through time and consistency. Brene Brown refers to this as an emotional hangover. We share more than we felt comfortable or gave more than we felt comfortable. Emotional boundaries are the breath of life for a friendship. Prentice Hamble describes boundaries as the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. Trust is built through time and consistency. And when I can have boundaries for myself, I can engage in a loving way and give what I'm comfortable giving and share in the space what I'm comfortable sharing. And we can enjoy the presence of each other and have it be a trusted space. And we both get to enjoy the fruit, the benefit of this connection. And we pour goodness into each other. And that can happen when two parties are being intentional, they're being aware of what they're contributing to the space, what they're asking of the space, and there's an awareness of emotional boundaries. So that's all I have for this episode. If you have any questions, please comment below. I'd love to hear your feedback. What do you think about emotional boundaries? What are some emotional boundaries that you have or that's come across on your plate or maybe that you've experienced? I'd love to hear your feedback of that. And what do you think that as a society we could do, we could learn about emotional boundaries? I'd love to hear your feedback on that. Thanks. Join me next time. Next time, we're going to be covering uh, how to practice safe emotional intimacy in our next episode. So join me next time. Thanks.